Good morning. I'm Karen Hamstra. Welcome to the Reading Road. The Reading Road. I have 3 books I want to mention to you this week. The first one is a historical novel, one of those World War II novels, of which there have been a plethora. This one is called Paris Never Leaves You by Ellen Feldman. If you liked All the Light We Cannot See or The Nightingale, you will most likely enjoy Paris Never Leaves You, although this one has a bit of a twist. Instead of being a resistance heroine, this woman might or might not have collaborated with the enemy a little bit. And the book centers on her life in Paris during the war, and then she was a refugee, she and her very young daughter, to New York City. They had a sponsor who brought them here, and she began working in the publishing industry. And the book flashes between New York City, present day in the 1950s, and 10 years earlier back in Paris. Just a really good read. It has such a strong beginning. It's really mesmerizing. I thought it lost a little bit of steam with its ending and how it played out, but I would still give it a 4 to 4.5 stars. So I do pretty highly recommend this one. And then continuing on with our Paris theme for the day, we have Paris is Always a Good Idea by Jen McKinley. She writes a lot of library mystery books, but she's kind of branched out here. And this is about Chelsea Martin, who worked for a fictional organization that fundraises for cancer money, kind of the equivalent of the American Cancer Society, I think, except this was called the American Cancer Coalition. She lost her mother to cancer when she was 23. At that time, she was in Europe doing kind of a gap year after she finished college before she started working. And she got the call to come home because her mother had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So she went home and she stayed for 6 years, and then her father suddenly decided to remarry, and she just could not cope with the idea. And he told her, and so did her sister, that she had just become stuck in her life. So she decides to return to Europe to try and recapture the girl she was after she graduated from college. And she had met and fallen in love with 3 men in 3 different countries. So first she goes to Ireland to check out how that man is doing. And then she goes to Paris to connect there, and then to Italy. And the book follows her along. Now, a word of warning, the language is a little raunchy at first, but it does improve as the book goes on. And it's actually a very good read, and it has some interesting insights about human emotion and how we cope with death and maturity and all that sort of thing. So Paris is a good read, Jen McKinley. And then I'm almost to finish this book, The Eighth Detective. This is a book that everyone will enjoy. Man, woman, maybe not child, but maybe an older child. The Eighth Detective by Alex Pavese. This is a very interesting book. You get 8 detective stories in this book. An author 30 years ago, 20 to 30 years ago, we're not quite sure, had written these 7 detective stories to illustrate how detective stories could be quantified in mathematical terms. He was a professor of mathematics at the time. In the meantime, for whatever reason, he fled to a mostly deserted island in the Mediterranean Sea, and a very small book publisher happened to stumble on to a manuscript that had these detective mysteries in them and decided to publish them. So he sent an editor to track down this author. And in between the 7 stories, the editor and the author have a conversation about each of the stories and its elements, but it fairly quickly becomes obvious that there is a mystery involving this author just waiting to be solved. And as I say, I haven't quite finished, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's going to be something. Of that I am quite sure. I have one more story to read that he wrote. The stories themselves are very good mysteries. And this book just got rave reviews, and it kind of redefines what a mystery novel could be. So I think you would really enjoy The Eighth Detective by Alex Pavese. So happy reading, and I'll see you the next time I have some books for you to read on the Reading Road.